You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and tonight on the show we are joined by Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, how are you?
Exhausted. How are you?
Not quite so exhausted as you, clearly.
It's been a rough couple of days. What can I say? Yeah, dealing with the paranormal world gets like that sometimes.
Excuses.
Believe me, I've got some really good ones.
Oh dear, bless you.
Yeah. Anyway, tonight's show we are joined by a couple that are founders of Brookes Paranormal. We've got Jordan and
Linda.
Linda, that's the one.
What are you like?
I was reading at the same time and just, yeah. Hello, Linda.
Good evening, Paul. Good evening, Kerry.
Good evening.
Right in the end.
Deary me.
I'm so pleased you finally remembered my name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just him, Linda.
Absolutely. I'm going to hand the show over to Kerry tonight.
Oh dear.
Good evening, Linda and Jordan. How are you both?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, Jordan isn't joining us tonight because he's having a problem with his throat. He's been a bit poorly the last couple of days. And sadly, his throat's extremely croaky, so he decided that there's no point in trying to talk when no one's going to be able to hear him. So, unfortunately, I've had to jump in the hot seat, so to speak, on my own.
I bet he's sitting there with a notepad and say, mention that.
Knowing him, he probably will at some point. Bound to do.
Well, hopefully he gets well soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll pass that on.
Yeah. Right. So let's go back to the beginnings. What got you into the paranormal?
Myself personally, it was a bit different to Jordan's journey in the paranormal. I'll just briefly talk about his part in, what really got him started. As means he's not here to do that. He more or less started right from actually watching the Most Haunted series, believe it or not.
No, brilliant. Love it. I did. That's where I started. Yeah, I agree.
Well, a lot of people did, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that really was the beginnings of what he was, working with. He was watching that, and the more he watched it, the more interested he got, and eventually he decided, obviously, when he was 18, he wanted to explore that a little bit more. And go on investigations and experience it for himself, which he did do, So, and it went from there, really, from strength to strength. His interests grew and grew, and obviously we formed our team. But from my own personal perspective, it was slightly different. My journey began in a different way. It was more a personal experience. I've actually been in a situation where I'm quite sensitive. I do see spirit often, and I do sense them, hear them, know end of things. Obviously a lot of it all comes together, which gives you a bit more of a picture of what's going on. But when I was the age of 7, that's when I had my first what you could call paranormal experience, and I saw my very first apparition. At the time, obviously being as young as I was, my understanding of what I was seeing wasn't obviously very clear to me, but obviously as time went on, the older I got, the more things I saw, the more obviously my parents couldn't shelter me from it, and obviously I had to get my grandmother, who was also a medium, to actually explain the reasons why I was seeing these things, and obviously it's sort of like my interest grew from there, from the experience I had. And obviously, as the older I've got, the more experience I've had with, going out and doing investigations. And the more I'm intrigued, no matter how much I see, no matter how much I sense, you always want more. Unfortunately, that's how we are, So for me, that's how that all started, really.
So you were like a sensitive or a psychic, would you class yourself as?
Well, I've been told I am a medium. I've recently gone to see Barry John at one of his workshops on Sunday, so it is quite recent. And obviously, I wanted to explore what I'm actually witnessing, and to see if somebody of that particular realm, a medium, could tell me what my abilities are, and what sort of, categorize it, sort of thing, as to what it is I am, because a lot of people, obviously, the take is quite vast. You can be sensitive, you could be an empath, you could be something else, so I know you don't like to label yourself, but you just like the confirmation that you're not going crazy, that these things that you're seeing, someone can relate to them and help to understand why you're seeing them as well, so, but it was quite an interesting workshop. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so it certainly help understand and explain some of the things, that have been going on throughout my life, so I find it quite interesting. But obviously the things that I do, obviously interact quite well with spirits when I'm on investigations, and because of that interaction, we've got some quite good evidence, which, from our point of view, is what we're striving to do, is to obviously see if we can get some intelligent response, whether they're just residual, a passing of time, replay, or as Richard Felix would call it, stone tape theory ideology, or whether it's actually an intelligent haunting, one that can actually interact with human beings, us people, when we go to buildings and things. So I find it quite fascinating even now,
It is a hugely fascinating field.
Yes.
Now, you work mainly around the area of Nottingham, don't you?
That's correct. Yes, we do.
So whereabouts have you investigated in Nottingham?
We've investigated the old trip to Jerusalem. That is a very old inn going way, way, way back. I mean, obviously, the history side of it, Jordan's more your person who tell you the ins and outs of it. But from, the bits that I can remember, it goes back to sort of like the time of the Crusades, and to do with the Nottingham Castle, and that sort of association, because obviously the rock of the actual inn is embedded within the castle itself. So, and it's got a vast amount of history, as you can imagine.
There's a ship there, isn't there? And
that's right, the galleon. That's correct. Yes,
that's right. What did you make of that?
We found out actually it's not the original galleon. No, it's not. It's a duplicated ship that's been put in a glass cabinet, and basically it's just there basically to ream the tourists, and they still think that's the original, but we've been told on very good authority it isn't. But people nonetheless will not still touch it, even though some of them do know it is not the genuine thing.
Do they know where the genuine one is?
We believe it was taken out of the actual inn itself, and somebody did keep it in storage sometime before they passed on, and after that it seemed to have been misplaced, and where it is to this day I don't think anyone really knows, and it hasn't been for the want of particularly trying, I think. So what happened to it and what the reasons were for it being removed, I don't know, but there has been speculation also that it was stolen, so whether there was any grain of truth to that, we don't know either, obviously. But it's somewhere being documented that's what happened to it, that they believe it was stolen. I wouldn't think anyone would want to steal it, given what the history of it is. To me, I don't see how that would fit, because obviously if they've been told that it's got a curse on it, who would in the right mind steal something knowing that curse could end up with them losing their life? It's quite bizarre, but you never know. It could be a bit of truth in it. I'm not sure.
You'd be surprised at what people want things like that for.
Well, exactly.
Depends on what realms you work in.
That's it.
I would say on that one.
Yes.
So when you went there, did you get any activity? What did you get anything that was worth noting?
Yes, I've been there twice now, 2 separate occasions, quite a few months apart. When I first went there, it was quite active. The second time, not so much. But the first time I went, we did have some occurrences which were quite bizarre. And even to this day, we can't, we're scratching our heads. We just don't know what's happened on the actual night. We had instances where, we were having a break. We left our voice recorders running. We came back after having the break and we heard a voice coming clearly saying push. And we were actually all at the top of the stairs when it seems the voice came through on the EVP. So whether it was somebody who was intending and pushing us down the stairs, we don't know. But it seemed quite bizarre that the timing of this particular word being captured, and it was the only word throughout the whole night on the recorder itself. It was just the timing of it. It was quite bizarre, because where we were at the time it was captured. Obviously we're trying to figure out, well, obviously it wasn't one of us because there was only 5 of us in the room. All 5 of us were in the same area at the same time and there was no one else in the building. So that was a bit of a question mark. And then when we went on another break, we'd gone down to they've got like a courtyard where they have the toilet facilities and also an outside bar where people, obviously in the summertime, can go out and enjoy the sun and have a drink. We were just stood out there on a little break again, talking amongst ourselves, and just out of nowhere we heard the loudest growl. And I mean, it was nothing like a dog's growl or anything like that. This was like 3:45 in the morning. And it really, put us on edge thinking, what on earth was it? We just all heard it, all at the same time. And we sort of thought, well, we looked around, couldn't find any source. There was no dogs in the immediate vicinity. So we sort of put it down to, well, another question mark. We don't know what that was. And then sort of within 20 minutes of that happening, just before we were going back to resuming our investigation, myself, I had an experience where I was going to the ladies' lab, as you do, on a break. And I went to push the door and something behind me stopped me from getting in and slammed the door straight back in my face. And there was no one in the toilet. I was the only one that was going towards that door and there was no one in there. So that was quite bizarre. And obviously straight away I said, I can't get this door open, it's jammed, there's what you put it down to, logic and everything. And we'd got 3 of us ladies all trying to push the door open and not one of us could do it. And then in the end we said, well, we'll get Jordan to come and have a go, see if he could do it, because he was with us. He went, touched the door, and as soon as he did, it just opened as if there was nothing, no force behind it whatsoever. He actually nearly fell into the door because it just gave way so easily, because we'd been struggling and he'd seen us struggle, just couldn't budge it. So that was quite bizarre, because it was almost like there was someone right behind the door on the other side pushed against it to stop you from opening it.
I've had a similar experience to that. I was at Fort Readout in Harwich.
Right.
There's one particular room we couldn't get into, and this room had 2 doors, one at the side, one at the front. We really couldn't open the one at the front, so we went round to the side and tried getting into that one. We actually thought someone had locked the doors, but then we realised there are no locks on the doors. So yeah, that was quite a strange one, and we literally had to, really elbow the door open, and when we was all in there, we tried shutting the door after that, and it wouldn't close.
Oh, right.
So God knows what that was. That was quite interesting.
Glad that somebody else has had that sort of similar experience.
Yeah, it's fascinating when things like that happen.
It is, especially with it being something like a toilet,
I know, I was going to say, it does kind of seem to happen at that kind of moment, rather than when you're sitting there for 3 hours in the darkest cell. It could happen when you go to the ladies, or men's or ladies.
Well, I mean, it's a toilet now, but years ago it might not have been.
It might not have been, exactly.
True. Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, I mean, another location we went to, Chelmsford Museum. We was packing up and we was ready to walk out the door, and we heard children's footsteps running up towards the toilets. So we followed the footsteps and then heard the men's, I think it was the men's toilet door slam shut, and we went in there and there was no one there, but we could hear children laughing in there as well, which made it a little bit more creepier.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting though. So if anyone gets a chance to do that location, definitely try it. It's a good one.
We
Definitely.
have Neil Cook in the chat room. Good evening, Neil.
Hi, Neil.
Lovely to see you in there. Linda says we are all psychic, but not all are mediums. But I think you have the gift, and you'll be amazed as and when you are awakened to it or awakening it. I agree, actually, Neil. I've got thoughts on that myself. I'll have a quick word after with Linda as to what I think she is, but I'm sure you'll be able to guide her better on that one. And he also says toilets have water, and water is a good conductor for energy. Water always seems to be a factor, and it's an area. I mean, you mentioned Felix, didn't you? Oh gosh, Richard Felix. God, names tonight, they keep going out my head. You mentioned Richard Felix and his stone tape theory. Yes. That's an area that I'm actually researching myself. And water does seem to be a factor, in some shape or form. Water is a huge factor in that. What's your take on that? Because you've worked with Richard before, haven't you?
Yes, that's very true. We've only just recently was down at Derby Jail with Richard, only just the weekend just gone, and we were actually watching him use his stone tape theory projector, and that was the first time he actually brought it to show it to us in working order, and it was quite bizarre, his take on the reasons why he thought it would work, in the fact that it would bring out images using like a smoke machine, but with dry ice, and actually capturing images that are projected from the actual stone building itself. I was quite interested with his talk on it. It's certainly got some of the right ideas, albeit, obviously it's sort of like only part way. It needs a bit more investigating on that particular subject, but I very much agree with where he's going with that research. Definitely.
I agree.
Do think there is definitely something in it, because I've actually seen something which is one of the reasons why I thought it was quite a nice thing to actually see it working, because I was at the village at Mansfield, and I'd done an investigation there as well, and I'd actually witnessed a full apparition, properly clothed. I could actually see the colour of the clothes, the colour of the lady's eyes, the colour of her hair, and all she was just an image. It was like recording of time, because she didn't know I was there. She never interacted with me. She just floated straight past me, straight into a wall. And I thought, as soon as you mentioned stone tape theory, I always think of that particular time, because that's what I think I was witnessing, that sort of stone tape recording of time.
That recording, yeah. What do you make then of when you have say you have 5 people in your group and only one person witnesses that?
Well, obviously the first thing is immediately we like to debunk things. Even I myself will try and do whatever I can to debunk it, because obviously if I'm the only person out of the 5 people that's there who's seeing something, obviously they're first taking it as well. Are you sure what you're seeing is real? And it's not just your imagination, or, as you do, everyone debunks things. Obviously, that's what makes us investigators.
Yeah.
But obviously, if I get something that's got intelligence to it, and they're quite aware that I'm there as I am aware of them, then I will usually try and use equipment. I know it sounds corny, but you do. I will use all the technology things that we have, even the basic thing like a K2, just to try and get them to interact with that, so the people who don't see what I see can understand why I'm saying that I'm seeing it, because obviously you can't interact with fresh air. There has to be something there that's interacting with it. And if it's not electrical and you're not near anything that's going to set that K2 meter off, then obviously then the sort of think, well, obviously if you're saying that they're there has to be something. And as I say, recently we'd actually been on an investigation in Nottingham. I mean, obviously that's something that will come out a little bit more as we're editing it, because we did film it. We actually had a person that I'd picked up on, who had a sitting in front of on the stool, and they were near the stool. It was an actual pub in Nottingham, but I won't tell you which one it is just yet.
Okay.
And the K2 was obviously, he was interacting with it. It was a male spirit. And as soon as I'd got my SLS, my portable SLS, I'd got that, mapped him in. And I was showing the others that were with me, it was only the 4 of us in total, and I said, if you watch now how I know he interacts with it, you'll be able to get a visual of what I'm seeing. But obviously, you're seeing a stick person rather than me seeing a person. And I was getting him to actually touch the K2, and at the same time as you could see him on the SLS touching it, the K2 was reacting. As soon as he come and got off touching it, obviously the K2, the reaction had gone. And it kept coming back from touching it. And they were actually seeing this happening, and they actually did, I think, a live at the time. Unknown to me, this was 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was sat there for at least half an hour, just trying to see, making sure that obviously he was well and truly able to keep that interaction going, and they were able to see that with the, as best as they could through using the SLS, because obviously they couldn't see the way I could. And obviously, as soon as they were seeing it, they were really quite bizarre. There was, I can't believe what I'm seeing, obviously, they just couldn't debunk it, because obviously it did it so many times that, you couldn't even put it down to a glitch, because it was sort of like you could see it reaching out. And as soon as it did, straight away the K2 went, instantaneously. And it did it on command every time. I asked, sir, would you touch it? Yes, straight away touched it. Can you take your hand off it now, sir? Take it off it, put it back on. And several times, So they were really quite, buzzing with that sort of, interaction, because obviously I could see it, but they couldn't. And it was the only best way that they could fix, where I was interacting with, So that
I was just about to say that for Parasearch listeners, the SLS is the stickman thingy.
Yes.
Just so you know. Just to clarify what you're talking about in regard to tech terms.
I'm going to say it sounds
tech terms.
It sounds so tech when you say SLS connects, but when you start saying stickman, it really brings it down, doesn't it?
Exactly. Everyone knows what you're talking about. It's a Parasearch radio term. We go with stickman thingy.
Exactly.
Okay? But amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was quite good, and as I say, we've filmed all of this as well. So obviously, we're going to be editing all that material. We've got, multiple things going all at the same time as well. So, hopefully that will be up on our YouTube page, and people will be able to have a look at it.
Brilliant.
Whilst you're doing all of the recording side of it with your cameras and stuff, do you actually note down like EMF readings and stuff like that, the data side of it on top of that?
We do, yes, we do. We actually go around before the investigation at night. We go around during the daytime, and we do all our baseline readings and everything. And obviously debunking electrical interference and things like Wi-Fi hubs, etc. So we know what's the normal EMF and what's not. So when it comes to nighttime, we automatically know what's going to give it a actual EMF reading when we go near a particular area of a room, and what wouldn't. So it's just one way of sort of like ruling it out, because obviously in the dark, if you don't do that during the daytime, anything could be possible. Everyone will be, that this is high EMF, but it could be just something so electrical. And the fact you're in the dark, you can't properly see it. So that's the reason why we do everything during the daytime, all the baselines. And that way, then when it comes to nighttime, we know exactly which areas have, high EMFs and which ones don't.
Cool. Are you, Neil was asked in the chat room, are you protective over Jordan whilst on a hunt? Being a sensitive, you obviously pick up more negative energy, or energy, shall we say, not just negative, but just energy.
Yes.
Are you especially protective over Jordan?
I am indeed. In fact, sometimes he says I'm too overprotective, because obviously he likes to push the realms. Obviously, if he wants to get some reaction from spirit himself, sometimes he will antagonise. Not always a good thing, depending obviously on the spirit. And obviously if you've got someone who's an extremely grumpy person, and you start antagonising him, you're not going to go down very well with him. Obviously, he's going to start doing something to more or less tell you to back off. And obviously myself, I often have to sometimes say to him, don't do that. Don't antagonise. You don't need to. And if I think that it would work, then obviously I'd say yes, but you do it always with respect. And obviously always apologise to them after, because, and explain the reasons why, you're actually doing it, because I often will go around during, daytime as well. And I'll actually, stupidly as it sounds to most people, but I actually go around and talk to them and let them know why we're here, what we're intending on doing, during the night time, and hoping that they will actually understand and interact with us as best they can, and I think it makes for a better investigation all round, because like you say, it's a spirit, we're people, they were just like you, me and everyone else. And I think respect has to come first and foremost, and if they don't want to interact with you, you have to respect that. That's their decision. It's their place you're going into, and you can't ask them to do everything, just
so
on
they're
a
not
whim.
performing monkeys, are they?
No, they're not indeed.
No,
That's right,
I think that you've got to read the situation as well. I've been in locations where you've had spirits, but they've been in the doorways watching what you're doing, and it's like, well, come forward. We don't mean no harm or disrespect. Just come forward and say hello. You don't have to be rude and sit in the corner. Although that could be perceived as antagonising slightly. You don't have to go full on and.
You don't. But believe it or not, I have actually seen it. On other people's investigations when we've just joined the team, or we just had to jump into an investigation with some other people that we know, and it has happened where I've witnessed it myself, where they've not really been that respectful, and obviously things have really kicked off because of it. And I think, well, if you're going to get pelted with something and you're antagonising like that, what do you expect?
But I
it's
think
not a good thing.
No, I know it's not a good thing to do, but sometimes I think that's what people expect from a ghost hunt.
Oh, it is. Absolutely, they do.
And I think that's the difference between investigating and ghost hunting.
Oh, it is.
You want that sense of, you want all that activity going off. So there are groups out there that will literally get in a group of people and then antagonise to the hilt.
Yes.
And they get lots of activity and they go think it's wow and everything, but then, they do cause repercussions for other people going in and stuff. So it's not always that good.
No, and I think a lot of it is also down to what they see on television as well. The well-known TV programs are very good for antagonising. You see it on likes of Ghost Adventures and things like that. Where everything's perceived to be a demon. And everything's negative. And I think because of what they say, that's what they think happens in real life, when it's very far from the truth. Obviously the reality, like everyone else. You could sit in a room for hours and hours and not get nothing. Even whether you antagonise or not, if spirit don't want to interact, they won't.
No, exactly. We had one of our investigators when she was new into it. She would do the whole most haunted stuff, and it'd be like, copy me with the whistles, and then it was, I've got a stone, I'm going to throw it back. In the end, I started calling her a vet. It just had to be done. And I'm like, what is it you want? You're going to throw stones at it now, and then expecting to throw stones. I'd throw a brick.
Yes. But that's it. If you call out and ask for these things to happen, you've got to expect that sort of activity to happen. And then when it does, they're sort of like running in the opposite direction, screaming because they've had something thrown at them. But that's what they asked for. So
What Gary has said in the chat room, some spirits are like us. Those I'd give respect. Others that I've come across, then I would respect them in life. Or I think what he's trying to say is, if they're not showing respect, why give them respect? I think is where he's going. It is a bit like that, isn't it?
It is, yes. Obviously, I've come across quite a few nasty characters in my time as well.
Nasties,
And I think, well, you can be as nasty as you like, because I'm not going to rise to what the bait that you're throwing. I'm not going to make the situation worse, because I know that's not the way forward. And often after the confrontation part, where they think, obviously they want to get you out because they think you're just the same as the last person that came in and the person before that. When they see that you're not in that same category and you're respecting them differently, and interacting with them differently, they tend to actually back down. And obviously you see the real person, not the person that the others have seen, which is this nasty person throwing things at them, telling them to get out,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, like, if you lived in a location, whether you're in your physical or ether body, either side, so many strangers coming into your house every other weekend or every weekend and going, come on in, show me what you got, kind of attitude. And you'd be like, hold on a goddamn minute, this is my house.
Exactly.
Or, this is, you'd be so cross, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
As a person. And that's got nothing to do with whether you're a nice person or a nasty person. Just that alone is likely to wind you up. Strangers coming in asking you to talk. Come and talk to me, touch this box, touch the light, make the light go, or whatever it be. You would, so you've got to sort of treat it as if you were going into somebody's home and that they are the ones that live there.
Yes,
I tend to give as good as I get. To be fair.
Yeah, I mean, if they give you crap, then give them crap. But
yeah.
Well, that's what your ethos, Paul.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. I mean, I went to the Ancient Ram Inn and just had the argument with the spirit there, and the team were like, "Oh my God, you can't do that," and I'm like, "Well, no, hang on a minute. He's the one shouting and cursing at me. I'll give it back to him at least. He should be able to take it."
I always say it, like, if you go into a pub all antagonistic, then you're going to get antagonistic back. You're going to get that back. If you go in with respect and start talking to people in a respectful way, like, "Hi, how are you? Come here often." The usual Saturday night at a pub. Do you come here often? Kind of scenario. Not obviously those terms, but you know what I mean. If you go in more relaxed and happy and just wanting to talk to people, you get a better response anyway. But if they come at you all giving it the big I am, then you go, "Hold on a minute, why are you doing that?" It's how you deal with it, isn't
That's
it?
right,
Yeah,
absolutely,
it's all about reading the situation.
Yeah.
If anything's going to happen, I want it to happen to me. I'm quite happy for that. That's what I go for. I go for the experience.
So have you had any bad experiences on your investigations?
Well, I don't know what you mean by bad. I mean, how bad is bad? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've had things thrown at us, obviously. We've had shouting out of thin air, audibles with our own ears, telling us to get out. We've had growls. I think we've had pretty much most of the things that you'd come to expect. So I wouldn't class them as bad experiences or anything nasty or anything. It's just them standing the ground. So.
Here's a question Gary's put into the chat room, and this is a bit of a controversial question. I would just like to say, if you come into contact with a not so nice character, shall we say? Yeah. I'm sure. Can you see the chat room?
I can't know, but carry on.
Okay. Would you show that respect? I know I wouldn't. I would argue, how would you know that they are unless they admitted it?
Right.
I'm going to just Skype you the question because I don't want to say that word. All right. How would you know if that person was unless they admitted it?
Very good question. I mean, I actually come into contact with a particular spirit that's at the village in Mansfield, and he was actually believed to be, I don't know whether you can say this word on here. I hope it's not too controversial to say, but he was well known to be a rapist. He'd actually raped his wife. He'd abused his own son, and he ended up killing him. And obviously, as soon as we bring that up, that the fact obviously we know, he absolutely flips out. He tampers with everything and anything. All the equipment goes crazy. He drains every battery. we start hearing things being thrown, and not little stones either. We're talking about barrels being moved and things, heavy objects, because obviously he's enraged that people know what he did, And, you do come across these particular instances, you're bound to do. It's, it's part and parcel of connecting with spirit, really, I guess. And it's how you deal with it, really, As regards of proving it, obviously you can't prove it because you weren't there, in their times area. You've got no way of bringing that proof through, but you just know from connecting with them, what they did, because you can see that. They're putting that image in your head as if you were there when it happened, so, but you can't obviously say, well, I'm taking this to the police, because obviously you've got no proof that crime had, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, that's true. And also, I think if you go back to, if you look at parts of history, you have to be very, very careful, because what was acceptable back in Victorian times is not acceptable now. Absolutely, in no way, shape or form, but was legal back then. So what's classed as unacceptable and certain terminology in this day and age, you have to be very, very careful. I'm not saying that excuses the crime at all in any way, shape or form, but I'm saying you have to keep very much a perspective about time and history in regards to that situation too.
Yes. That's very true indeed. And a lot of these crimes that they did commit back in that particular time era, whatever time it happened to be, they were all done behind closed doors. People never know, except the perpetrator themselves, So, and obviously the guilt went with them when they went to the grave, because obviously they had, the church to thank for that, in a sense, because they were told that if they committed such terrible crimes, that they were going to go to hell. So, obviously that's a lot of the reasons why they never moved on, and they still linger.
I was going to say that's another reason why they become earthbound, isn't it?
Yeah,
they might. Yeah, but then again, if it's a part of history, then to them it's going to be normal. So there is going to be no guilt. And I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be something that comes up in conversation. It's like, hello, my name's John, and I'm a,
No, exactly. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
It is one of those, isn't it? Is that unless you know the history or the alleged history, because again, proving stuff is sometimes very difficult, particularly the further back you go. Particularly, there is only so much you can find out. I mean, and yes, you can go to all the archives, you can go to read books and stuff, but again, unless you lived that history, unless you walked in those shoes, you don't know.
No, you don't. That's very true.
I know you can do the research so far, but unless you walked in those shoes, you have no clue.
No,
in reality. But it is an interesting concept. Yes, if I knew that for a fact, I wouldn't have any respect for that person, no more than I would a person down the street that I knew was possibly, that was that particular point. But it is a very interesting concept when you look at it, because again, you look at it from a historical point of view. What was acceptable back in today is not acceptable now. You have to take time. You have to put it in I can't think of the word, the concept of time. Do you know what I mean? Put it in that particular time frame. And what we now find completely unacceptable is not what necessarily they would. What makes a nasty person, not necessarily those kind of traits. I mean, I know nasty people in this day and age, and they're perfectly lovely to me, but in reality, I've known them to do some horrible things to other people, you know, and that's just from working in pubs and clubs, for a long time in my life. It is very subjective.
Definitely, I would agree with that, definitely.
And it's not only history as well. You've got to take into consideration society as well. It depends on where you are and what the location is, because, I mean, all across the world, you've got different ages of consent. So again, that you've got to take that into consideration as well. Depends on what the location is.
Okay, so let's go down another route. Let's have a look at something like a more recent. Gary's leading this, obviously. He's coming away from that particular subject and going down someone like Ian Brady. But then again, you know the history of that. That is a well-documented police investigation. Facts in police investigations. I actually had Greg Lawson, who is a police officer in America. Very broad term. I know exactly what he does, but obviously it's a bit secret. Who investigates from a police perspective. And he was saying that it becomes easier, actually, the longer we go on investigating from here on out, because police procedures have got so much better over the last 20, 30 years that we can verify more facts because of the police structures that are now in place, that they weren't in place like in the Victorian era. You know, like the Ripper was breaking work in regard to serial killer, you know, and that was in the very embryotic stages of police, you know, the policing. So when you look at the policing history from now, it should get easier with people like Ian Brady or something like that, because we know the facts and figures. We kind of know if what we're getting is like, you know, in an investigation, we kind of will be able to verify those facts at least.
And I mean, and again with Ian Brady as well, it's quite a modern case. So you know the society surrounding him, you know the history of that particular case. So you can take all that into consideration, and what he done obviously was wrong. But
completely.
If Ian Brady was in the middle of the medieval period, maybe it's not so wrong, if that makes sense.
Not so wrong, but it wouldn't be verifiable.
No, that too.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's
Makes
purely
sense.
the difference.
I'd
The way
agree.
society viewed it, you know, the way that it was dealt with throughout the system at that particular time, because it was back in the medieval times, it was a feudal system, if I remember rightly from my history lessons at school, dealt with by the lord of the manor, not a policeman. We didn't have the forensics that we have now. I mean, you think how fast and how far the police system has come. That's where I find it interesting. However, playing devil's advocate, as a medium, it becomes more harder because those facts are more are more available in the media. So as a medium, you might not really know the case, but someone will always be saying, but you could have read that in the Daily Mail, or you've seen that on Sky News. You know what I mean? Because it's more available out there. So it becomes harder as a medium because you can't close yourself off completely from the world. No. But to say you knew nothing of the case, but you know what you're getting as well. It becomes like a double-edged sword, doesn't it? It always is a double-edged sword, but even more so the more out there information is available to people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll shut up now. Gary, be quiet.
Very in-depth conversation we're having here, isn't it?
I know, all of a sudden it went very deep, didn't it? Anyway, back to what you guys do.
Oh dear.
Sorry, your mind's still there, Linda.
What are we doing? As I say, we've sort of like been doing investigating now for quite some time. I mean, right back to 2016, before we started the group, which is now coming up, believe it or not, to the first year point. So that's gone quite quick, really, for us. But we've carried out some investigations in some fascinating places while we've been doing it. We've gathered some very good evidence, which some of it you can look back now and think, oh, we perhaps could have debunked a little bit more, just to rule certain possibilities out, as you do. But as we're evolving, obviously our techniques are as well, and we get more into the profile of actually debunking first and then look at what we've got after, what's left and what we can't debunk. Then we look into a bit more in depth, so, but we're now doing our own events as well, which we've recently started. Obviously our first event's already been and gone, and the second one due on the 26th of May at the Robin Hood Experience in Nottingham, which is
brilliant.
Yeah, so but that's an interesting place as well. It's one of the ones that we've had some interesting evidence on as well. And Gresley Ode Hall we've also got coming up on the 8th of June. We do have 8 places still left for that event as well, so it's not quite sold out yet. There are some places available, and we have Stephen Griffiths as well, who's joining us as a special guest investigator on the night as well.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's a brilliant location. I mean, we've had some interesting stuff again there. And when you go back and, not once, not twice, 3 times, and you're still getting the same evidence and you still can't debunk it, it makes you want to go more, because you want to know what that evidence is that you're actually capturing. It must be something that's there, within the fabric of the building, and trying to piece it all together and work it out, it's quite intriguing. We've also got another one which Neil Cook is going to be joining us in the October, the Halloween. We've actually got one coming up on the 14th of July. It's called the Ye Ode Salutation Inn, which is in Nottingham. And we've also got that event as well coming up at Halloween with, as I say, with Neil Cook, who's joining us for that night as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Mm.
And the last one we've got coming up is in August, and that's the National Civil War Museum, which is an interesting place on its own without investigating it, with the artifacts that's actually in there, and, all the various things they've got from the Civil War, and medical things that's going way, way back in history and time. We went around there to have a look around the building, and absolutely blown away with all the things that they've actually got there. They've even got a Roman coffin, an original Roman coffin that
Wow.
they've actually got with a skeleton in it, intact.
Oh, so you won't be getting in it then?
Oh, no.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that comment.
Yeah, don't go there. Don't go there.
Don't go in that coffin if there's a skeleton in it.
I was going to say there's actually an encased glass that's protecting it, obviously, for historical reasons, so no one would be able to do that anyway, That is an extremely fascinating building, and they've actually got a Tudor hall there as well, which is, got carvings in the actual wood beams from the children that used to go when it was a school, and they've got the names of the children and the dates, 1837, I think it was, and I find all that quite fascinating, without anything else investigating wise. So we're looking forward to what's going to be bringing, into that, and on that one we've actually got Tom Warrington, who's going to be doing a live radio broadcast as well.
Oh, brilliant. Love Tom. He's fantastic.
Yeah, we're quite pleased that he's actually joining us that night. It's quite interesting.
He's fantastic.
It is. And I'm not actually heard of anyone actually doing a paranormal investigation here either. So we possibly might be one of the first.
Fantastic. That's great news. Tracy has asked a question. Tracy Stevens. She said, are the Brookes investigation team going to be joining the Parasearch Radio charity event that's going on the 18th of May next year?
We are actually looking, as we speak, at doing exactly that.
Hey! Brilliant news.
Definitely. We were only looking at that today. So we are looking at joining that particular good cause and doing our bit for charity. We do a lot of things for charity ourselves away from the paranormal realm. We support things like cancer charities, multiple sclerosis, which is what my mother has. So, and my sister passed nearly a year ago from cancer as well. So obviously, they're causes that are quite close to my heart.
Close to your hearts, yeah. Well, this is the whole point of this. It's about individual teams doing events specifically for charities of their choice. So it's not about one charity. It's about whatever charity you want, whatever event you want to do, whether that be an investigation, whether that be a ghost walk, whether that be a fireside ghost stories, whether that be a pub where someone's telling, talking paranormal and ghosts, whatever it is you want to do. Parasearch Radio is behind you all the way. Let us know what your event is for the 18th of May.
Will do.
We want to do it. It's one day, 18th of May, 2019. And we want all the paranormal teams in the UK to do this. We can raise a huge amount of money for various charities across the UK. And obviously, Parasearch Radio will give you a big shout out. And hopefully, maybe even Skype you in at various times throughout various events. Yes. That would be awesome. We're planning on doing a big thing for that particular night. So I'm going to be out and about that particular night myself, but I'm sure that we can sort something out for that particular night for the radio as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can, definitely.
And I'm hoping that other paranormal groups as well will, join in, because I think it's an extremely important thing that, they're all the community comes together on something like this,
Exactly.
Because,
and we're not just putting a call out to the the paranormal teams out there. We want the academics out there in the field with the teams doing work. We want the scientists out there with them doing it. We want everybody pulling together for this one day to raise as much money as we can for whatever charity, across the country. In fact, across the globe, if we can get this going. We're calling out to America, Australia, Europe, everywhere. That's the date, the 18th of May next year. We want you guys organising an event that's purely based for charity. If at all possible, let us know. Be part of this. Parasearch Radio is behind you all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a must for anyone out there, like you say, to get behind this good cause and do our bit for charity.
As much as we can, very much so. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
I think because I've got such a big team, I've got my team behind it as well. And I think
he's already nagged me.
Yes, I've already told Kerry she's going out that night.
Winkle pickled me out of the studio for that night.
Absolutely. I think we've got 4 events planned for that night, and the 2 charities that we've picked are a friend of mine, that they were a young couple. Last year they lost their little baby, so it's going to be for the Sick Children's Trust for that, and sadly he lost his life this year, so we're going to go for cancer charity as well.
Yeah.
So we're gonna raise money for two charities, but yeah, we've got 4 on the go on the planning list, and hopefully with the rest of the team behind it, we can do a few more as well.
It looks like I'm a busy girl that night because I'm also joining EAPI apparently.
All right.
Looks like I could be running around the country doing various events that night.
No sleep for you then.
No, I don't get much sleep anyway. So.
I'd say Kerry's going to be in Hockley Woods or something.
Oh, I don't know where I'm going to be that night, but I'll be definitely doing something. How can I not? How can I not? If I'm calling the whole community out to do this, and Kaz Rooney obviously is the driving force behind this, how can I not back one of my presenters in this? I've got to pull my weight for once.
It's going to be amazing. I think it's a really good idea, and it's already been well perceived. So I think a lot of teams are going to get behind it.
I agree. I totally agree. And I'm glad that Brookes Paranormal is behind it too.
Absolutely.
So you've got big things coming up this year for Brookes.
Yeah, we have. We've got quite a full calendar at the minute, with also doing our own private investigations as well as the events. We're sort of like do try and cover as much as we possibly can. I mean, this weekend it's not been too bad, but there's been weekends where we've been out Friday, Saturday and a Sunday, and Monday it's just like a day in bed trying to catch up on sleep.
A dying day.
Absolutely. Doing about paranormal hangover for 3 days on the trot, but it's not a good feeling, believe you and me. But well worth it though, and as I say, we just love doing what we do, and we just like to see what we can get and just let other people see it, share it with people so they can see what we get on investigations, because often that's some of the things that you don't often see is people these days tend to get something, they like to keep it to themselves and won't put it out there, and I think it's such a shame because something that's quite good that you've caught, it could be something that somebody else has caught and thought, well, I didn't think worth putting up because I don't want people taking credit for it, and it just gets a bit silly like that, I think it's important that people see what you capture, rather than hidden and keep it in a locked cupboard or whatever, That's what it's all about, really. We're all doing the same thing. We're all after the same evidence. We're all trying to get the same answers,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you put something up. If you don't know what it is and somebody else does know what that is, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's not about being competitive or anything. If you've got a fair understanding of what that could be and need that, we all get stuff that we go, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
I've had it, and then I've sent it to, friends or Paul or, whoever, and gone, what do you reckon? And they go, well, actually, I know
Dust.
that this is...
Yeah.
You need to get your Danson out or whatever it is, your Henry out. I'm like, oh, okay. No, I'm not that bad. But we've all had those things where we go, what do you make of that? I thought I heard... we were doing a live on the show. I'm sure I heard something in some of the footage we took while we were doing a live on one of the shows once. And I actually sent that to somebody who hadn't listened to the show, just sent him the section that it was, said, what do you hear? He went, nothing. And I was like, right, okay. Sent it to 2 or 3 other people. They were all going, nothing. So I go, okay, so for me, that was obviously audio pareidolia.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was wanting to hear something in that. So that's fine. I take that.
Yeah. I think it's good as well, like you say, just to get someone to verify what it is that you're thinking it is and get a second opinion, if you like, because what somebody else who has a fresh pair of eyes that sees something might not be the same as what you think it is, and it's a good way to debunk it as well, And
learn as well, and learn from that.
Exactly.
Well, because then all of a sudden, next time you come across it, you go,
you know what it is. Yeah,
I know what that is, so I'm not going to put that out there because I know what that is.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. And if you're serious about the paranormal, that's really, really where you should be coming from.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that the reason a lot of teams don't do that these days is because you've got the keyboard warrior sitting there ready to pounce on you and just slate you left, right, and centre, and it's ridiculous. I tend to block those people now. You should see my block list. It's long.
It
was doing overtime the last few days.
But there's plenty of people out there who are serious about the paranormal and have the knowledge as well. And it's worth putting it out there to those privately, not so much on socials, but privately. Many times I've sent bits and pieces to people that I know, thankfully, because I have those contacts through the radio, and gone, what do you make of it? And I've learned so much from those people just from that kind of thing, and gone, okay, I didn't think of it like that. And they go, well, you look at it this way, this way, this way, and you go, okay, that's fun. But that's why I find the field so fascinating, because it incorporates so many different fields like psychology and, videography and physics and, so many different fields that it takes into. And I'm sure you find the same. You end up with so many different areas that you don't even think you would need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you on that, definitely.
Yeah, it's an amazing, I don't know, it's fantastic. But we're coming up to the end of the show. It's been an hour already.
It's gone very, very quick, hasn't it?
It always does. I'm going to have a word with the management, maybe get an hour and a half.
Need extra time.
Yeah.
Before I do go, is it okay if I can actually just give a few details out? I've just realised that I've gone through all our events, but I haven't actually told anyone where they can book them.
Yeah,
is
sure,
it okay if
go for
I
it.
just give them? We're actually got our own webpage up and running now, which is www.brookesparanormal.co.uk. Obviously, we're on Facebook, Brookes Paranormal. We've also got our videos uploaded onto our YouTube channel, again, Brookes Paranormal. And we're also on Twitter as well, at Brookes Para UK. That's all of the contacts that you can actually, anyone who's listening, if they're curious to come on one of the events, they can get in contact with us.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna look that up on.
I'm just having a quick look, and I'm going to just quickly share that into the chat. The website, at least.
Absolutely. I've just looked you up on. There you are. I've got you on Twitter. There you go. Follow. Done. Had to be done. Yeah, I actually watched your live show, the live thing you done the other night with at Derby Jail. That was quite good.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I was there watching. So, Kerry, what's coming?
YouTube.
What's coming up with?
Sorry, there's a quick Google search there on Brookes Paranormal.
What's coming up this week on Parasearch?
Okay, well, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. we kick off at 8 p.m. Obviously, I've just said that. The Supernatural chat show even, with Richard Case and Sean Cadman in the studio, followed by Haunted Histories with Port Arthur and Gary Sullivan with Penny G. Morgan. Always a fascinating night, a Wednesday night. Thursday evening, we're at the Spectral Zone with Kaz Rooney. We're having a little issue with George, so bear with us. We will bring you something on Thursday for the Spectral Zone. On Friday evening, we've got the Dark Mirror Show we're talking about indigo children on Friday. We're having a topic night, so we're talking indigo children. And then on Sunday, I've got the lovely Lisa Michaels back in the studio, intuitive life coach, and we're talking about how anxiety creates fear barriers and stops you from actually achieving things that you want to achieve. So we're going a bit more spiritual on Sunday. So that's what the rest of the week's got lined up for you on Parasearch Radio. And don't forget, check out our YouTube channel, Parasearch Radio. Click, like, subscribe, share.
Just do everything. Just push all the buttons.
Push all the buttons. You know you love it.
Indeed. And next week on the Paranormal Concept Show, I'm hoping to have Jack Kenner on. I'm still trying to track him down.
Oh, no. Good old Jack Kenner.
Maybe
I need to flutter my eyelashes a little to him.
Yes, I think you must do that. Absolutely. try and get him on for next week. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure you'll try. You're very trying, I know. But as I said, we are actually at the end of the show now, so I'd like to thank my guests for joining us tonight. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and we shall have to arrange another night for you to come on for part 2.
Thank you very much indeed for having me, and it's been nice talking to you both.
No problem. And thank you, Kerry, for joining me as ever. It's been wonderful. I've tried to get everyone edgeways, but yeah. But it's been good. Thank you. And thanks everyone in the chat room. It's been a pleasure, and you've had some really good input as well. So, as always. So, yes, thank you. And we shall see you again next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.